some peace of mind. But TikTok said a gator drove a Jeep through the blinds. Florida man's at it again with fireworks and a goat. And someone married a ghost in a Dollar Tree coat. Hey, what in the Walmart rapture is going on? Aliens dancing in a Waffle House song. Karen's got a taser in the checkout line. And Dr. Oz just adopted birds to fight off crime. Oh, I'm just sitting here scrolling my jaw on the floor. The internet's a circus and I can't take no more. Yeah, when it's wildin', there's a raccoon in the sink. Someone robbed a Wendy's just to steal a frosty drink. A pastor's gone viral yelling about the end is near, while folks ride hoverboards in wedding gear. Yeah, what in the Walmart rapture is this mess? Florida's a movie, but it's filmed in VHS. Someone fed meth to a squirrel named Dave, and now he's in a cage just throwing rave. I'm just
Good morning, everyone. It is Monday. It is not raining, but I forgot about daylight savings time. And I don't know about anyone else, but is it wrong to plan like world domination based on solely on destroying daylight savings time? I don't know, but if you all would like to join me on this daylight savings time spring forward is BS. I am still not recovered. I woke up yesterday and I'm like, "I never sleep until 8. This is impossible." And then my husband was like, "No, it's daylight savings time." And I'm like, "Oh, crap. I don't wanna deal with this." Look, I like fall because in theory, it means that everything I just hate daylight savings time. It's dumb. I I don't like it at all. We have some interesting news because the world did not stop over the weekend, even though, well, you kind of wish it would have. Well, I don't know. Good news. I don't know if I can say good news in like Professor Farnsworth, Futurama, because I don't know that I should say like good news. But in news that I find that I cannot find any pity about, but don't know if I should endorse celebrating. However you feel about Ian Huntley, I'm not gonna say I bought a cupcake because that would have been, well, me going outside. Ian Huntley, one of the UK's most notorious child unaliver, passed away days after being attacked in prison. Now, this was a big case over in the UK. He took the life of two young school-aged girls that he was a janitor or a grounds person at the school that they went to. This was think Delphi, only they actually got the right person, and it looks like Gen Pop Justice took care of things. One of Britain's most notorious child unalivers died Saturday, just days after he was attacked by a fellow inmate in a workshop of a maximum security prison. Now, why do you have one of the most, notorious child unalivers in a maximum security prison that also has a woodworking shop? I don't know. But this sounds like something that anyone could have foreseen happening. Now, Ian Huntley, a 52-year-old former school caretaker convicted in 2003 for the murders of two 10-year-old girls, had been on life support after being hit repeatedly over the head with a metal bar at Franklin Prison in northeast England on February 26th. Now, he was accused and convicted of the murders of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman, and it did transfix all of Britain. I mean, it was everywhere. Again, I'm not from the UK, but I have watched documentaries about this, and according to those documentaries, it was all over The Sun, the Daily Mail, the Time, or, all of the UK. So this was a giant case. Now, they had been, just going around their small town, these 2 little girls, after a family barbecue, and said to their or, didn't really tell their parents where they were going. Very much like Delphi, it was a small community. Parents felt safe to send their kids to the local corner shop to get, snack foods and things like that. So no one really had any idea what happened to these 2 little girls, and it kind of consumed the town. Now, for 13 days, police searched and looked for the pair. And what is interesting about the Huntley case is that Ian was actually on the news along with his then partner. I cannot remember her name, but she was instrumental at helping him dispose of the girls' bodies. And they did several TV interviews where people started catching on that these 2 might know something. Now, Ian Huntley inserted himself into the investigation quite early by claiming he was one of the last people that saw the girls. They had come up to him and, asked him about his partner. So, he he was doing all the shiftiest shift things. Now, photos of the girls wearing matching Manchester United soccer shirts taken just before they disappeared became a fixture on front page news broadcasts as detectives mounted a huge hunt. Now, thousands of people visited Soham, an enormous outpouring of concern, leaving, flowers, support, things like that. Unfortunately, the search ended when a group of hikers discovered the girls' remains parked beside kind of a dirt path in a wooded area that was a few miles away from the village. The murders remain one of the most shocking, devastating cases in our nation's history, and our thoughts are with their families, said the UK Ministry of Justice in a statement. Now, Huntley denied murdering the two 10-year-olds, but was convicted after a trial at London's Central Criminal Court in 2003. Now, his life sentence was recommended, and he would have to serve at least 40 years. So, life doesn't exactly mean full life in the UK, but it can be up to a full life. While in prison, Huntley survived repeated attempts on his life, so he was kept under close protection along with other notorious prisoners. Well, obviously, y'all didn't do a great job. Again, I'm not going to cry tears because a monster met his end by another, guy in prison. But this was not unforeseen. In incident in 2010, his throat was slashed by another inmate. Now, at the time of the murders, Huntley lived with Maxine Carr, a teaching assistant at both Holly and Jessica's school. Carr gave Huntley a false alibi and was subsequently jailed for 21 months for perverting the course of justice. Now, she does live under a new identity today. So, um, in English justice, there are certain carve outs for most famously in I want to say Jimmy or Timmy Bolger case. If the perpetrators of a crime happen to be minors, they are offered a change of identity if their crime is infamous to try to give them a fresh start. But also victims, now it was purported at her sentencing, Maxine Carr's sentencing, that Ian Huntley was very violent with her, so I think they also allowed her to change her identity because of the infamy tied to her past identity. I don't know how I feel about that. That's definitely more. Thank you, Jamie Bolger. I am terrible, terrible with names. That's why I know I wouldn't be great for true crime unless I, am in the case at the moment. My names are now, Huntley and Carr often talked to the media during, the time when the children were missing, so that's another thing that makes this case very unusual. You have 2 suspects that inserted themselves, into this giant case kind of in plain sight. It was very, very interesting to watch, and like I said, I'm from, Indiana. I've only seen documentaries. I would encourage you to look at UK content creators who are around or, could give you a general idea of what this case was like. But when I compare it to the Delphi or the Maddie McCann case, it was that kind of case. Now, Huntley told them that he thought he was one of the last people to see them alive, while Carr said that she would always keep a card that Holly had driven or drawn for her. Now, British media have reported that murderer and, well, criminal essayer, um, Anthony Russell, 43, was responsible for the attack that ultimately led to Huntley's death. Now, Durham Constabulary are being investigated and are looking at the circumstances of the incident that led to his death, and a file is being prepared by the Crown Prosecution Service for consideration on charges for what are you gonna do? Give him more prison? I mean, I'm not saying give him an award, but I mean, really, what are you gonna do? Take away his TV? Well, if he can't watch Coronation Street, what will he do? I don't know what charges you're gonna give to a guy who's killing monsters. I do not know. And in sad, sad news, Woodstock legend Country Joe McDonald has passed away at 84. Country Joe McDonald, lead singer of Country Joe and the Fish, has passed away. The iconic singer who co-founded the band, known for its psychedelic folk country rock and legendary 1969 Woodstock performance, passed away on Saturday. Now, the cause of his death is unclear. Well, I mean, he lived a lot longer than Janis Joplin or, I mean, many people from The Doors, so honestly, good job, sir. The singer was born Joseph Allen McDonald, and he was 84. Country Joe and the Fish was one of the most influential groups in the San Francisco music scene in the mid to late 60s, addressing counterculture issues like protesting the Vietnam War and recreational marijuana use. They're known for songs like I Feel Like I'm Fixin' to Die Rag, one of the era's most recognizable anti-Vietnam protest songs. I mean, kinda looks like Ted Nugent, which is weird. Just to me, like, no one else has to endorse that he facially looks like Ted Nugent to me, but to me, it's kind of odd that he does remind me of Ted Nugent. Now, the group was founded by McDonald and Barry the Fish Melton and released 2 albums. Their debut album, 1967's Electric Music for the Body or for the Mind and Body, and Feel Like I'm Fixin' to Die, which came out a little later that year. Now, the band disbanded in 1971, and McDonald went on to have a solo career, continuing to release songs with political messages highlighting environmental and civil issues. Well, then he looks like John Tesh there. Okay, maybe I just have that thing where I can't tell faces apart because everyone looks like everyone else to me. And then he looks like Alan Dershowitz here to me. He's a man of many faces. I think it's proposingnia or propophagia. It's where you can't identify faces. Not that it actually is a legitimate thing, but it's very, very rare. So I do not have it. I'm just joking. Um, as you can see, I'm adjusting well to this spring forward. No, stop daylight savings time. Now, he did also work supporting Vietnam veterans, and he led an effort to create a Vietnam Veteran Memorial in Berkeley, California, and was involved in establishing a Vietnam Memorial as well in San Francisco. Now, he is survived by his wife, Kathy, and reportedly had 5 children. So, what a great long life. He stood for what he stood for, and he, put his money where his mouth was and actually, wrote songs, but then got recognition for soldiers who went over to Vietnam. So, you know, that's not so great. Now, in talk to your teenagers, tell them not to do ridiculous things. I wish I didn't have to report on this, but this is such a horrific tragedy that didn't have to happen. A Georgia high school teacher, Jason Hughes, unfortunately lost his life during a prank gone wrong outside of his home, and now 5 teenagers have been arrested. I do foresee this being a giant case. I do foresee Court TV, Law and Crime, and possibly even Fox News and the other sort of not not always in the kind of court genre. I do see this being a giant story. You have jackass teenagers doing jackass things, and a bunch of different stuff. Are we gonna hold these parents responsible for this as well? I don't want this to be a pivotal case, but I do think that this is going to be a giant case going forward. A Georgia high school teacher was fatally run over outside of his home in a freak accident when 5 teenagers targeted his home in a late night prank gone wrong. Now, Jason Hughes, a math teacher at North Hall High School, was investigating a commotion outside of his Gainesville, Georgia home around 11:40 p.m. Thursday when he allegedly spotted pranksters rolling toilet paper across his property. Uh, so this is coming from local news, and this is citing, sheriff's reports. Now, the 40-year-old educator stepped outside and walked over to where the cars that 18-year-old Jaden Wallace and 4 other teens were getting ready to flee. Now, Hughes allegedly tripped and fell into the road as Wallace drove his pickup truck away, unfortunately running over the homeowner. Now, the teen driver and the 2 others stopped to check on Hughes, providing first aid until emergency responders arrived and transported him to the hospital. So, in all the calamity and all the shock, these young men at least stopped and tried to render aid, which is something that is very rare in these type of cases. So, I don't know if that will at all change charges, or anything or prosecution with their willingness to stay and try to help in any way they can. At least I will say that that is something that I have rarely seen when reporting on these. We get hits and runs, we get, people running away. We rarely get people stopping and trying to render aid. Still a stupid dumbass thing, still don't know where this is going, but I will commend them for stopping and trying to help. Now, unfortunately, Hughes passed away from his injuries at Gainesville's Northwest Georgia Medical Center on Friday. Now, Wallace has been hit with a slew of charges, including first degree vehicular homicide, reckless driving, criminal trespass, and littering on private property. Now, his alleged co pranksters, Elijah Owens, Aiden Hux, and Anna Catherine Luke, along with Ariana Cruz, are all 18 and were arrested outside the Hughes home and charged with criminal trespass, littering, and misdemeanors. Now, Wallace is being held on a $1,950 bond, according to reports that were reviewed by the Post. Now, Hughes is a golf coach for the district and was remembered for his love of family and dedication to his job. Our hearts are broken. Jason Hughes was a loving husband, devoted father, and a passionate teacher, mentor, and coach who was loved and respected by all students and colleagues, the school district said in a statement. He gave so much to so many in numerous ways. Our hearts and prayers go to his wife and family. Now he leaves behind his wife, who was also a math teacher, and 2 children. Now, it was not immediately clear why the couple's home was targeted. A memorial for Hughes was held at North Hall High School on Saturday and attended by many, many students and staff. I think he was connected through a lot of people and has taken a toll on a lot of the community because he was very big in the community. Said a sophomore of Olivia Williams. He was very social with people and always at events. He was always just cheering people on, no matter what the event was. So it will be very, very interesting to see what happens going forward. There have already been charges given. It will be interesting to see what becomes of this and how going forward this is handled. And I can see court TV and law and crime jumping on this. It's very tragic, but it also has a lot of interesting nooks and crannies because I do believe that there might be some leniency given for them attempting to render first aid. I do think there might be, mediate or mitigation as far as their age and things like that. I do wonder, what will be the balance of punishment and rehabilitation and consequence, because we're not always good at that, especially when our hearts are broken or it's a big case or it's a tragic loss. We seem to not be able to do that as much. Now, This is gonna be big news. I do recommend that you look at, multiple different outlets, and do understand that this is breaking news, at least from yesterday. So there might be more updates, and I will try to bring those out to you. But I don't have a command of all the political nuance here, so I would recommend if you want to learn more about this particular story to go to other content creators who maybe live in New York and maybe can give you a better flavor of what actually happened. Now, it is being reported that self-radicalized ISIS protesters used explosives called the Mother of Satan inside bombs thrown at the Gracie Mansion. So, the Gracie Mansion is the house where New York City Mayor Zohan Mandani now lives, but it's the mayor's home. A pair of ISIS trained extremists were charged with hurling an IED at Gracie Mansion during a rowdy weekend protest, allegedly packing the homemade bomb with Mother of Satan, a volatile explosive favored by international, well, bad guys. Now, the two fanatics, Ibrahim Kayumi, 19, and Imer Balat, 18, both were self-radicalized in recent years and traveled to Turkey along with other hotspots, for potential training is what the state is alleging. And this is quite scary. Again, it doesn't look as though they went off, but it did seem like they were at least attempting to be, operational. Now, Balat spent more than 3 months in Istanbul last year, while Ibrahim flew to Istanbul and Saudi Arabia in 2024, and then made a trip to Melbourne, Australia in 2019. Now, a pair admitted to cops after getting busted at the violent demonstration outside the mayor's residence on Saturday afternoon that they had also watched ISIS videos and tossed the bomb at the right wing agitators because they felt that the agitators had insulted their religion. Now, I do believe that there was a protest about according to the protesters outside of the mansion that day, there has been an Islamification or a kowtowing to Islam in their opinion. Now, according to the guys that threw the bomb, they insulted Islam. I don't know who's right or wrong. I am just telling you why they said they did something. Now, interesting for a religion of peace to resort to violence when it's disrespected. Not gonna throw that out there, but, it's a conundrum. Now, the homemade device did consist of a sports drink bottle that was filled with, triacetone, triperoxide, or TATP, a substance that is favored by, well, not bad guys. And known as Mother of Satan, which is also so volatile that it typically doesn't require a fuse to go off. Now, the substance can be cobbled together using household ingredients that are readily available at home improvement stores. Oh, well, that makes me feel very safe. It's designed to maim and kill, it's just lucky that no one, they didn't work. Now, this is a similar type of bomb that was used in a high-profile attack in France, also in the UK, Belgium, and New Delhi, in the past decade. So this is very, very easy to procure, easy to cobble together, and has been a tool of those who are, well, bad guys. Now, fortunately, it did fail to go off during the Saturday afternoon clash between demonstrators backing Jake Lang and pro-Muslim counter-protesters. Now, I haven't done any more than a cursory kind of topical search on what both sides were mad about. As far as the validity on either side of the points that they were shouting at each other about, I don't know, and I would encourage you, if you're interested in this case, to dig deeper because I didn't. So that's what we know right now. It will be interesting to see if we find these people are connected to anyone else or what their other travel relationships are. I do know that with the current events in Iran, there is a big fear that there are sleeper cells. Now, whether that turns out to be true like McCarthyism was true in the sense that Hollywood was always commie, changed my mind, allegedly in Minecraft, though I think we can say that I have been Razor Fist has been, has been shown to be right. However, it will be interesting to see if there is an uptick in these kind of loosely affiliated but self kind of actualized events happening with the current events in Iran. I hope not. I'm not one that tells you guys to panic or, start prepping. But what I will say is that we live in a dangerous world. Check your exits when you go somewhere. You know, talk to your family, like, if we get separated, let's meet here. Yeah, I wish we didn't have to do that. Yeah, it sucks balls that, someone can change the way we live our lives, but we can still live our lives and still be prepared. I don't know. I'm gonna still live my life. I'm still gonna go when forced to, outdoor events, but I'm gonna be smart about it. And that's just kind of reality the way I see it. Now, in I didn't know whether to put this in final form Jesus or just straight headlines, but I think in context it goes in just straight headlines. Um, a UFO expert's disappearance in New Mexico is a grave national security crisis. I thought you told us aliens weren't real. Now it's a grave crisis that the guy who's an expert in a thing that isn't real is gone. How about you stop lying to us? Tell us, what are the catillions invading? Given the way Congress is popular right now, I don't know that anyone would be upset if the Catillions offered us a coherent tax structure. I mean, honestly, maybe that's why they're upset. The Catillions are offering a flat tax, and they're like, "No, it will be too popular. We can't let the citizenry know." The mysterious disappearance of a retired Air Force Major General with deep expertise about UFOs who went missing without a trace during, well, around February 28th, constitutes a quote, grave national security crisis, end quote, according to an investigative journalist. Now, local law enforcement said William Neal McCaslin, 68, disappeared after leaving his Albuquerque, New Mexico home on foot, leaving his phone at his home. So interesting. This is a man with some of the most sensitive secrets of the United States in his head, journalist Ross Coulthart said in the latest edition of his Reality Check podcast, adding that this man, McClasklen, possibly possesses the deepest knowledge about what the US government might be hiding in regarding to extraterrestrials. No, this is do what now? Where are Mulder and Scully? Is David Duchovny out of addiction counseling? Can we get him on this? Because this is convoluted already. Now, the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office has issued a silver alert for the missing retiree, seeking help from the public to locate him, and noting that they do have concerns for his well-being due to, medical issues. Now, during his Air Force career, he headed up the research at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, a role in which he oversaw classified space weapons programs, according to the journalist who's looking for him. Now, the base near Dayton, Ohio, is rumored to be in possessions of fragments of extraterrestrial debris, or maybe he just knows like a bunch of our current secrets, and that's also a reason. I mean, I worry about the Catillions too, but maybe we could just worry because he's missing. We don't need to add the aliens to it. But there you go. Interesting. Now, according to the investigative journalist, this timing is very relevant. The fact that this general has disappeared off the face of the earth during a grave national security crisis is is concerning to him. Now, I I I don't think that correlation and causation can be the same thing, but There you go. I guess. I guess. Now, for those of you who may be traveling, well, American Airlines has a new rule, and thank God, maybe I'll fly again. But this passenger learned about it a little too late. An American Airlines traveler freaked out after she was kicked off the plane for playing videos on her phone without using earbuds. Yes, that is total rude butthole behavior. Get earbuds, get headphones. I don't look, I'm sure your videos are fun and cute, but I don't want to, listen to them with you. Be kind to other people, wear earbuds. They're like $9 at Walmart. You don't have to get a special pair. But yeah, don't be a rude jackass and assume that we want to watch your video with you. An American Airlines passenger unleashed an expletive riddled tirade as she was allegedly kicked off a flight for playing a cell phone video on her loudspeaker. Now, in the video, the woman swore at cabin crew before being let off the plane with police, even though she claimed she stopped playing the clip after the second warning. Quote, I played a video for 30 effing seconds at 50% sound, and that's the effing reason you're kicking me off, the passenger, described as drunk by another passenger, said. Ah, you don't say. Booze were involved. My shock. The enraged traveler, who was reportedly belligerent before the Tampa bound plane even left the gate at the Miami airport, continued to hurl expletives at flight attendants before daring them to call the cops. And they did. So then she double dog dared them and they let her out in handcuffs. Yet you have to be very, very careful when you double dog dare someone. What the actual F, the passenger said as she carried on her tirade, shared on TikTok. She claimed that she stopped after the second warning, and the disgruntled passenger repeated her claim that she had only played the video for 30 seconds. Listen, this is not a free speech America, or are we being a-holes to literally everyone, she has to cop. Then she claimed she was keeping the peace before asking officers, "Can I not express my feelings?" No, no, you can't. When officers are not there for your feelings. The other officer then chimed in to say, "You can express your feelings over there," pointing to the front of the plane. The traveler sarcastically thanked others for recording her before she was eventually led to the exit. She wagged her fingers at other passengers, thanked the officers, and while the other passengers thanked the officers and burst into applause. The woman was causing a commotion was also seen sarcastically applauding as she trooped down the aisle. Now, the Post has approached American Airlines for comment. Meanwhile, United bosses have updated the company's contract of carriage, mandating that all passengers wear headphones while using their cell phones to listen to music or watch, videos. Now, passengers who refuse to comply do risk being removed off planes, but they could also see them permanently banned from the air carrier. So, yeah, just put, earbuds in. I don't understand what's so hard about that. Yes, it's free speech, but my freedom is not to be impeached by your freedom to be a jackass. Like, you don't have the freedom to be an absolute jerk face. Well, now this is something to take notice of. Now, I'm not going to blow it up like mainstream media, but I do want you to be aware that in areas of the world that are accepting in sanctuary cities, for lack of a better term, we there are schools and areas and localities with a higher, incoming immigrant population that are dealing with diseases that we have basically eradicated out because of early childhood vaccinations. Other countries don't have these early childhood programs that vaccinate for these highly communicable diseases that we've all but eradicated in America. The problem with that is you get a bunch of children who have these diseases who have not been vaccinated, and it's very communicable, and you have a community and health system that isn't really set up to treat it as well because it's been nearly daggone eradicated. But we are gonna see more of these. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and get all the jibbity jabs. That is between you, God, Jesus, Oprah, and your doctor, and possibly RFK Jr. at this point. I don't know. What I am telling you is that when the news starts popping up these outbreaks, do be aware that that these are mostly going to affect people who are from countries where we didn't have a robust vaccination background. So, measles and mumps and things like that, when we do start seeing outbreaks on media, if you hear about a local outbreak, this is generally the population they're going to be talking about. But the mainstream media presents it as if it is, you know, universal, holistic, your possibility to get these things. No, but there will be more pop-ups of these, and I do hope that we are able to get some sort of containment process and things in place because we are running into more people who are questioning vaccinations, who are delaying vaccinations, and we could be very, very potentially in a bad spot depending on, again, how things go. So I'm not mainstream media, but I do foresee this being an interesting issue. And if you do hear about outbreaks, these are the populations more likely affected to kind of give you a critical lens to look at it through because it can be quite worrying when you just see in your local news, like, there's a mumps, there's a measles outbreak. It typically comes from a population who were not vaxxed or in a country where vaccinations were, prevalent, or a population with comorbidities such as the homeless or things like that. There are different things that sort of make these outbreaks more likely, and it's not so much the general population, but it is something we need to be aware of because these outbreaks, are isolated for now, but if we, get a large enough population that doesn't have the herd immunity, it's going to be an issue, and I think it's something to keep an eye on. Mostly, I'm a nerd, that's why I pulled this headline. Now, this was breaking just yesterday, but the Kansas City International Airport has reopened after a threat prompted swap and a lot of localities' law enforcement to swarm the terminal. Kansas City International Airport in Missouri was partially evacuated over a threat Sunday afternoon, but resumed normal operations fairly quickly afterwards. The security incident at Kansas International Airport is now clear and normal operations are resuming. Uh, you know, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy was able to write on X just hours later. Now, a airport representative, Jackson Overstreet, told the Associated Press in an email that the threat had been reported at 11:50 a.m. local time, at which point an entire terminal was evacuated. Now, he said planes that landed after the threat were held on a taxiway until it could be fully investigated. Now, FBI Representative Dixon Land said the Bureau was aware of the incident and worked with law enforcement officials to determine the credibility of the threat. Passenger Logan Hawley, 29, told the outlet he was getting ready to board a flight to Texas when he saw police and K-9 units swarming the terminal. Suddenly, there was an airport worker saying, "Immediately evacuate." People got up fast and rushed out of there. Now, roughly 2,000 people were taken out of the terminal and onto the tarmac. Photos and video from the airport were circulating online and showing large groups of passengers that were, on the tarmac waiting for the terminal to be opened. Now, there haven't been, because I have been looking for updates, there haven't been a whole lot more updates on, what were any, kind of specifics about the threat, and they might not release that just because to keep kind of operational security of what forces or resources could be involved. We might not get a whole lot more about this story, but let's get into some stories that we can talk about. They're the final form Jesus stories that make you wonder, well, what in the Walmart rapture? And I love it.
The key-keeped grove, thou glowing shrine of thirst traps, scams, and dollar signs. We chant in tones both grim and low, for virtue fled a long time ago. Kyrie eleison, Christe descendat, final form Jesus return in wrath. With six-pack glistening, sword in hand, he cometh swift to cleanse the land.
Well, someone tried to unalive Rihanna? What the hell? The gate to Rihanna's home and an RV were hit by bullets as a suspect fired, an AR-style rifle. I have no idea. Why would you do this? Why would people do anything? A woman allegedly shot several fired several shots into the Beverly Hills area home of pop star Rihanna on Sunday, and, actually, they penetrated the wall of the mansion and got through. Now, Los Angeles police responded to the report of the shooting at about 1:21 PM in the afternoon in in Beverly Hills. What the hell? Now, the LAPD radio dispatch for the incident said that at least 10 shots had been fired at the residence from a vehicle across the street from the property's gate. Now, the vehicle was a white Tesla. Who does a drive-by in a Tesla? This is why it's final form Jesus. I can't make heads or tails of this. And then it fled south on Coldwater Canyon Drive. As the police searched for the Tesla, they relayed details over the radio that the suspect's hair was in braids, she wore a cream-colored blouse, and her car was dirty on the bottom. Now, officers in a helicopter soon caught sight of her vehicle and followed it to a shopping center in a parking lot of Sherman Oaks, where they arrested her around 30 minutes after the 911 call came in. Now, bullet holes were found in the gate of Rihanna's home and an RV parked on the driveway. I Now there's not been a whole lot more released as to why or what. It seems that the couple, may or may not have, or at least they weren't there at the time of the shooting, thank goodness. Because I think she's married and has kiddos. So I'm glad that no one was hurt in this, but we haven't gotten a whole lot more details on it yet. So that is something that I will be trying to keep up with. Um, this is more of a we're just gonna go I'm gonna go Snake Island for this one because this is one where I think can I'll adopt them. I'll adopt them. I'll adopt them. Like, if they can't go home, hell, I got a big house. But the Iranian women's team may face jail time or death after losing a soccer game. Keep those women wherever they are. Don't send them back to a war zone. Australian protesters have laid siege to a tour bus transporting Iranian female soccer players as calls grow for the government to protect the women. Around at least 50 protesters, some brandishing the Iranian lion flags, which would be the flag of the old Shah, so the old Persian Iranian flag, not the Islamic Iranian flag. As the bus left the stadium on the Gold Coast on Sunday evening, now the Iranian Sun and Lion, Shir or Khorshid flag, I've probably mispronounced that, was used before the 1979 Islamic Revolution and has been used by protesters in the recent years and recent days as a symbol of resistance against the current regime. Now, the women's team faces the prospect of returning to Iran after suffering a 2-0 defeat against the Philippines. The defeat ends their Women's Asian Cup campaign, which was marked by controversy after they refused to sing the Iranian national anthem on Monday. Now, Foreign Minister Penny Wong declared that Australia will stand in solidarity with the Iranian women's soccer team amid fears that the women could be either jailed or killed if they return to their country. Now, thousands of Australians are urging the Albanese government to act to protect the Lionesses players as they played their last game on the Gold Coast. The women's team saluted and mouthed the Iranian national anthem ahead of Saturday night's match after international fervor over their failure to do so in the earlier match. Now, I don't know. I'm not from Australia. I don't know the government there. And I would encourage you, if you want to know more or see if you can help support these women so they don't have to go back to a war zone. Feminists. Hey, feminists, you know how you're always constantly bitching about stuff? You seem to have a lot of time to bitch about stuff. See, I have like a family and stuff. But if you could use your loud mouths because you love shouting at stuff, if you could actually work for women here, women who play in a game despite having to be covered from head to toe, women who, you know, are going to be sent home to a war zone with a regime that will punish them for lack of give them asylum. But as I said, look, I'm an American. I'm seeing this from an American's perspective, and that's quite it's quite a small perspective in the grand scheme of the world. So I would encourage you, if you feel strongly after hearing this story, if you want to do something to help or maybe just learn more, look at Australian content creators, look at Australian, news channels, see what they say because they will have a much more in-depth feeling and understanding of what's going on than I ever would. But gosh, I wish all of the loud feminists who want to talk about rights would really start screaming about stuff like this, because that would make the world a better place. I don't care about manspreading or mansplaining, but I definitely care about these women being safe. Now, we're back to the airport, but apparently there have been some weird things found, well, left behind in luggage. That's where I would go, like, don't take me to the Mall of America, take me to the, found luggage store of America. That would be a cool place to meet up, and we'd all, like, find weird people stuff that they left behind, not thinking of a vacation. So, samurai swords, a World War II jacket, and a meteorite are among some of the craziest items that have been left in unclaimed luggage in 2025. Travelers left millions of items behind in 2025, including things as eccentric as a samurai sword, an expensive pair of diamond earrings, and a historic World War II flight jacket, according to the new unclaimed baggage report. Now, Unclaimed Baggage, which calls itself the nation's only retailer of lost luggage, released its annual Found Report on Thursday, listing its most interesting finds from luggage that airports couldn't get back to their passengers. Each year, I was amazed at the treasures discovered in luggage and what it reveals about our society. Brian Owens, the company's CEO, said in a statement, after more than 55 years of reclaiming the lost and rejected for good, we've often believed that we've seen it all, but we uncover something like a matching set of samurai swords, a fully assembled robot, a Dolce& and Gabbana jeweled jacket, or gold-plated golf clubs, and we're reminded of why the annual Found Report still exists. Let's see. The report said that while 99.9% of checked bags are eventually found, find their way back to their owners, a rare few take a detour, one that ends at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in Scottsboro, Alabama, the location of the unclaimed baggage store. Now, the top 10 find for the company's third annual report include a robot, a bionic knee. You would think that you would not have that on your you would think you'd be using I'm just I'm just throwing it out there. You think you'd have the knee on and in. A 10-karat gold teeth grill or grills. Apparently, there were multiple grills as you have. A meteorite, a pair of fire poi used for fire dancing, an Australian 1-ounce pure gold bar, a matching set of samurai swords, a beekeeping suit, gold-plated golf clubs, and a a teak didgeridoo. The top 5 most expensive finds include white diamond earrings worth an estimated $43,000, a stainless steel Rolex watch with 18-karat gold and diamond dial worth around $35,000, a Tosca bass clarinet worth $17,500, a Balenciaga jacket worth $12,500, and a T530 thermal camera valued at more than $12,000. Uh, what the report described as weird includes a taxidermy deer form, a frog purse, a pre-World War I U.S. Army bayonet, a giant stuffed goose, a long bone specimen, an armadillo purse, a 12-pack case of sardines, a fake skeleton, a suitcase filled with rat poison, and a feather bow tie. The top sports finds were a signed pair of boxing gloves from undefeated boxing champion Terrence Crawford, and the top fashion find was Miss North Dakota US's 2025 state costume designed by Ryan Castillo. The top find from around the world was a Tibetan singing bowl. Inter Do what now? I am all the confusion. But there you go. If you wanna buy whatever this thing is that a seahorse? You're North Dakota. What is North? Are these the Northern Lights? What the hell was North I'm gonna have to ask ChatGPT now, what the hell was North Dakota supposed to be? Because I am confused. ChatGPT, don't fail me. What was North Dakota supposed to be? Supposed to be dressed as. 'Cause I'm getting jellyfish, I'm getting seahorse, I'm getting possibly she it's supposed to represent crops like wheat and canola in the windswept plains? Legitimately, I'm getting seahorse. I'm getting pregnant male seahorse, which okay. This is why you guys know I'm not good at fashion because I would have never gotten gentle sweeping plains of stuff from that. I am all the confused. Well, a zoo has revealed the name of its newborn spider monkey after asking for help from the public. Well, they could have just named it youngest most feral. A Connecticut zoo asked for help naming its baby spider monkey and has revealed the winning name on Facebook Friday. The Beardsley Zoo in Bridgeport created an online poll so the public could help select an appropriate name for their female black-handed spider monkey born in December. Now they gave three choices: Esperanza, Mirabelle, or Reina, and even explained what they mean in Spanish: hope, wonderful, and queen, respectively. Now, the names, which were chosen by the animal care specialists, were in Spanish because the black-handed spider monkeys are native to Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, and Panama. Oh, and it looks like Mirabelle won. And as a person who, for the first time this weekend, decided to watch Encanto, also Disney. Look, the 1 or 2 times you actually create a good movie, could you possibly have a warning on there that I'm going to bawl my eyes out like a hysterical teenager? Like, could you just warn a heifer? Could you warn a heifer? Like, just say, like, at the beginning of Up, like, before the little like, right after that little star over the thing, like, "You are gonna cry hysterically." Like, just like there you go, and then we get into the whole, like, saddest first 5 minutes of a movie ever. I just need a warning because I hadn't seen it and I thought, "Oh, I'll just watch this." My house was quiet, I was in my comfy chair, and then they get to, like, several parts, and I'm like, "This was not supposed to be a therapy session." I did not I was just watching a cute little movie that, Yeah, I I will say that, I enjoyed it, and gosh darn it, Disney, gosh darn it, make movies like that. Make it so a very pale woman in the middle of Indiana can watch a movie about Colombia and have it linked to me on a universal level because you're talking about universal feelings. Go back to that. Go back to making stories that talk about families and the real life and everything. Because you know what? I didn't say at the end of that movie, gosh, I didn't feel like I saw me in that movie. I thought, gosh, isn't it amazing how I can see me in a movie that's culturally different than me? Interesting. It's almost like if you have a good story, it's universal. I don't know, Disney. Don't take advice from me. You're doing wonderful right now. But I will say it's a very lovely movie, and if you, have to deal with grief at any time, I think it's a very lovely way of how strength can somehow become very brittle because you wanna be strong for your family, but it's not always about being strong, and I just thought it was a really good message, and then they get onto other stuff. But, yeah, make movies that are good, and people will watch them. It's almost like it's not that hard. Now, in our final headline, and the reason I will be, eliminating the Federal Department of Education, a woman graduated with a 3.87 GPA, but has the reading abilities of someone in first grade. She is now suing her former school district. Now, a high school graduate in Washington is suing her former school district, claiming that it awarded her a meaningless diploma. McKenna Simonson, who attended Linwood High School in Bothell, recalled graduating, high school as a day full of promise. I was happy. I was like, oh my gosh, I finally made it. However, her sense of excitement quickly faded, she said. Now, Simonson, who has a learning disability, has been enrolled in special education programs since elementary school and did graduate June 2022 with a 3.87 GPA, despite ending her senior year still struggling to read at a first grade level. Now, this seems like a systemic failure. There should have been IEPs. So in Indiana, there IEPs, I can't remember what they stand for, but basically every year for all of my sons, because they've had developmental delays, um, we kind of sit together, we talk about how they're doing, their goals, what we'd like to achieve going forward. Whether I've got one son who's pretty much graduated from help, but to see how he's doing. But there was so many failures here. I don't know how, and the school district needs to explain something. How did this happen? Now, she had planned to enroll in Edmonds School District's free vocational program, which helps transition special needs students into independent life, but discovered she was ineligible because she had received a regular high school diploma. Instead, Simonson had to enroll in Bellevue College's Occupational Life and Skills program that cost more than $40,000 and includes it. Now, it does include her tuition, room and board, and living expenses, but she could have stayed at home and done the high school program. If asked if she felt prepared for her post-graduation life, the 22-year-old told, local news that she didn't, that she, should not have earned the diploma if it wasn't going to help her get anything. Now, her family has filed a lawsuit against the Edmond School District in Snohomish County Superior Court, alleging that educational malpractice and benevolent discrimination went on. The complaint obtained by People, her attorney states that she was unable to read, write, or do math beyond the elementary level by the time of her graduation from Linwood High School in 2022. The district's failure to provide Ms. Simonson with the opportunity to access basic education that was fully aligned with state and district standards, and its decision to issue a diploma to her based on that, thus cutting off any transitional support, has caused significant harm to this student. So, yeah, it does seem that. Now, the parents claimed that the district pushed Simonson through the system and gave her perfect grades all along, despite her having little to no comprehension of any of the material. She got A's or A minuses in math class, but can't tell how many quarters, nickels, or dime goes into a dollar. Put simply, Miss Simonson was denied an opportunity to graduate with a meaningful diploma. Her education did not prepare her for post-secondary education or gainful employment, or, just to be a functional citizen. Now, in a statement to People, the Simonsons' attorney, Laura Haruska of Seattle's Cedar Law, said it's frustrating that receiving this high school's diploma actually closed doors for McKenna instead of opening them. The district should have postponed her diploma conferral so she was able to assess her transition services through special education to prepare her for life in the real world. We are seeing this as a statewide problem as or in Washington, students with disabilities have their IEP or an individualized education program services prematurely cut off when the district confers a regular high school diploma that simply doesn't mean what it's supposed to. So, yeah, JKD Buck, I have a question. I also have a question as to if the IEPs didn't indicate that these children were ready to be released from these programs, how were they getting it approved? This seems like something bigger. I would not be shocked, um, if long crime doesn't take up this filing. What I would say is if this does turn out to be something that was a pattern to deprive children of their resources as they transition into a functional life with special needs. This needs to get the lid blown off. If this has happened to multiple students, we need to figure this out because I've worked with people with developmental disabilities that have come from programs where they learn occupational skills, where they learn that they can be as functional as useful in society as they possibly can, and that is such a wonderful opportunity to see, one of my clients come up to me and say, "Hey, you know how many boxes I did today?" And they'd be excited and full of pride when they got the biggest number. So, to deprive people of that, I wanna know the reason, and I wanna understand why this is happening, because this is absolutely gross, and I hope it gets taken care of, but I do see if this becomes something that they can show was systemic, I wouldn't be shocked if Law and Crime or Court TV don't take this up if it can be shown that this was something systemic, because I think we are going to be dealing with a lot of these, we just push kids out, we didn't care about academic, achievements at all, and I think it's going to be a big long-term problem. I think this is the first of many cases we are going to see where children were pushed on, to make, schools look right, to make districts look right, and to get funding, but that's my more cynical take. I could be very wrong about that, but I foresee there being more shenanigans. And then to end on a happy note, because as I always say, the bad stories get a bajillion and 12 headlines, and the good stories, well, they don't always make it around, but I thought this was very, very sweet. A woman was taken in to get a hysterectomy and woke up to 115 missed texts from her husband. So you kind of think, what the heck is going on here? But it turns out it's pretty sweet. When Carrie Jabowski woke up from her hysterectomy, she didn't know what to expect, but it certainly wasn't over 100 messages from her husband, Paul. The 41-year-old teacher told People that when she first awoke, she felt lighter with no pain or panic. My surgeon came over to check on me briefly, and I was still freshly conscious. So it was a quick conversation where he made sure I understood the reason I had been in so much pain and that I handled surgery well. After about an hour in a big room, I was taken to the discharge room. I fell asleep in there again, and I woke up to my husband nose to nose with me. I burst into tears with maybe every emotion ever, and he looked like he'd been through it too, so I made sure to repeat over and over again that I was okay. While they were on her way home, Jabowski finally asked Paul to hand over her phone, and that's when she saw 170 new text messages. I was very confused, thinking they were from an individual, people. That's when I saw that over 100 of those were from him, and I started to scroll, and honestly, it's on brand for Paul, but also it was a grand gesture by any measure, so it really helped me, reassure me of his, love and devotion. It wasn't just the number of messages that took her by surprise, but the content of them. Not only had Paul sent messages of encouragement while she was in surgery, but he also took her Paddington Bear plushie on an adventure with him throughout the surgery, which he knew would make her smile when she woke up. Jabowski shares that Paul is a silly, sweet man by nature, and yet she thinks this little project started as something to cheer her up, but also kept him grounded and, not worrying when she was in surgery. So while his wife was in surgery, Paul took the stuffed animal with him to a diner for pancakes, to a local museum, and other pit stops around town. Now, at each location, he would stop and take a picture and send it to her phone with a quick note. Jabowski posted a video about her husband's sweet messages on TikTok, captioned "A drag path," but it's 115 texts from my husband taking my stuffed Paddington Bear around town while I had my hysterectomy so I'd have something to wake up, that was silly to. I think people see this as silly and random, but deeply devoted display of love and recognize this is what we need to feel seen and valid. I think we all just want tactile proof that the person that we think about most thinks about us, and I hope that's what come across as. I'm not bragging, but it's just me finally understanding that this is what I've always wanted, and me understanding it's what I've wanted, and reminding people it's okay to want this too. Aw, so it's cute. Let's see. Oh, that's cute. This is something I would do. That is sweet. So, even though we are going to be jumping over to Corey Richins and the not so great marriage that they had, there are really good marriages out there, and they're really sweet people that care about you, good, bad, when you're in surgery, all that thing, So, yeah, I get it. Maybe he couldn't stay at the hospital. Look, she seems fine with it. I don't know that I'd want Mr. Mo just sitting around all day. I'd probably have him go do something too, because I know he just worries. So to me, it seems very sweet, but I know to other people, they might want their spouse there, but for me, yeah, I definitely do that. So have a wonderful day. We are starting at 10:30 today. I have sent Nick an invite, but we will be starting, and as a reminder, kind of housekeeping for the Corey Richin stuff, the state did say now this is subject to change, but they were looking at resting their case either, this evening or tomorrow morning. So it will be interesting to see, if we are still on track for that. It will be interesting to see what the defense's case is and how long they plan to go. Now, we are still scheduled for 2 more weeks, but I don't know that the defense's case is gonna be 2 weeks, so we will see. I will see you guys at 10:30 with Nick, and we will be there for Corey Richins. What more cringe can we find? Will I finally see the infamous walk the dog letter? Let's hope. I'll see you guys then. Bye.